So tonight we've got a very interesting event. It's very much probably the culminating event for us for the year because we don't know yet what we're going to do in terms of Christmas parties, but we typically do that with other groups. No one's planned anything yet, so this could well be the final event. There is a QR code, and the QR code has got all the goodies there, like the meetup links, the website. We've got a Discord as well, which has a lot of great conversation on there. When there is conversation going on, it was a lot more during the bull market. Even in the bear, people are looking out for each other. Lately, it's been tax advice, and we'll be talking about that later with Harry Dell up the back there because some interesting things coming from the ATO because they love DeFi, obviously. We'll come back to the QR code. So we've got a few updates here that we'll go through at the start, and then we're going to go into some Hedera talks and a panel. We've also got the tax updates with Harry. Stables is here. There'll be a video from HBARSuite all the way over in Perth, and a special guest, Anthony Sassano, is here with us. I don't see him. Oh, yeah, there he is. Hiding behind him. Okay, thank you so much for joining us, sir. And for folks that don't know, this is a very blockchain-y kind of week. Blockchain Week is one thing from Blockchain Australia. Steve Vallis has just managed to continue those things with Digital Asset Conference. This week is Crypto Assembly on Thursday and Friday that you folks might have heard of, and some are here for that. And then there's also the Blockchain Governance Initiative talks that have been really interesting lately. So there's, as much as it's a bear market, there's a lot of people in this space. So really quickly, we'll go through the updates. Oz CryptoCon, who went? A good number. Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining. We know that you were there. You have your traditional... Katarina up the front here has our just permanent whale pass. So, perma whale. So you would have seen her right up the front there. They had a really good setup where it was split across two rooms. The auditorium that they had for the main stage where Michael Saylor spoke online and a few others was nice because you didn't have all the outside noise kind of filtering through. So you can see that there. You saw like Binance, Take3, who helped run the thing, and a whole lot of others. There were a lot less rug pulls this year in terms of the stalls. So that was really interesting and good to see the space mature. And also there was like some workshops, some great talks and stuff as well. And new wallet exchange that came through called Grinio. So interesting to see them there. And we've got our own, one of our main sponsors is Stables, and they've got some great wallet technology too, and we'll hear from Liam a little bit later on. And then we had that weekend, that week, Web3 Social over at Upside. So Upside is a co-working space over in Melbourne, and they've just got Web3 folks galore across 5 levels. So it is a great kind of space to be working in, and great to see that Melbourne has got that kind of thing. Sydney is still working on that, so it's great, but we need to, up our game to have that one single space. I'm looking at you, Rob, help us out there. So we've got that, and then we had a networking and debate. Is crypto the future of money? And guess what? The against side won. So they said, well, the definition was that they saw stable coins as more the future of money than traditional crypto as we see it right now. But it's more of a popularity contest. We all agree that blockchain is the way to go. And I say that we all agree because I was on the losing side, so I apologize in advance. So that was great. It was really great networking. And then we also had the blockies. So you had great supporter folks like Jock Haslam here from Hashlock. They won, I think it was Rising Star or Startup of the Year, I think, or something. I don't know. I'm looking at Nick as so my colleague Nick is here, and he's usually my go-to, but I apologize for putting him on the spot. So the blockies you had, sorry, just going back there, we had Stables. So Jock there, Stables won quite a few prizes, so awards. They won 2, so that's quite a few. So that was really good, and Liam will be up on stage later, and he can tell you about those things that they won because they've been really good at that, developing, and they've got a great looking app. So the blockies were judged by a great panel of judges from the space and from different areas. So definitely we thank those people, and it was just really nice to be recognized for running these events. So this is an award. This is Somewhat unexpected. It was the first award. I didn't know what the order was going to be, so I forgot to thank the Academy. I forgot to thank our chapter leads and all that kind of stuff. I just said thank you to everyone and just walked off shocked off the stage. But I just want to say that this is not for me. This is for all of us, everyone that's been part of this. Our sponsors, our great chapter leads. 2 of them are up in the front of the room here. And across the nation, we're in Perth, Adelaide, Melbourne, Brisbane, Canberra's even had events in Newcastle. So it's been great to be part of this story of growth for the last 2 years. We did not expect it to be what it has become, a place for people to come and share ideas and learn and collaborate and just be part of this open and amazing space. So like I said, this is for you guys. So thank you very much. I'll bring my colleague Nick up on stage here to quickly talk about FinTech Fest, and he, I believe, wore this outfit the whole time.
Yes, which is why it stinks now. No, I didn't really. So a lot of you in this room have probably been to Singapore FinTech Fest. God, you're going to get really close to this slide. Anyway, amazing format. 68,000 attendees. Out of the expo center just near the airport there, really across, payments, obviously banks, but really strong representation from policymakers, a fair sprinkling of Web3, DeFi, stablecoin, on-chain intelligence. People like TRM Labs are there, Raka, who are a digital asset custodian, the fantastic, inimitable, legendary Hedera HBAR. They had, I look at my LinkedIn, I've got a list of the best quality merch that came out of the whole event, and the HBAR socks, which are absolutely superb. Thank you, Rob. The HBAR socks, beautifully curated item of foot coverage. That was one of the highlights for me there. Yo-yos, yeah, but no one could get the fuckers to work properly. It was just, yeah, exactly. Anyway, so amazing event. Really strong representation. The caliber of the people that come into the city for that event is what it's about. So IMF, BIS, the central bank representation there. I know at times that feels like the enemy from a crypto perspective, but the openness to dialogue, to discussions of stablecoin use cases, crypto use cases, STO platforms are very strongly represented. The willingness to talk and experiment. I reckon we'll get 2-3 POC, like major POC use cases for our technology out of that trip. And the guys at Investment New South Wales and Austrade, from my perspective, did an amazing job. So thank you, Rosa, who is somewhere here. Where is Rosa? I can't see her. She was here. Oh, she had to go. All right, thanks. She's rubbish. No, it was really good. So, yeah. Sure, fair enough. Anyway, it was really good. Thank you very much.
And there you can see Nick proudly. He's not showing the socks there. We don't want to know where they are in that photo. So I do want to point out, and I think I saw someone from crypto. Joey is here from the Blockchain Governance Initiative. Is Mitch here as well? Okay, fantastic. So like I said, folks, there's a few folks that were down at, it was 4 days worth of events leading up to the crypto assembly. So there's been nothing but amazing conversations. And if you don't already follow Joseph Beverly or Mitchell Travers on LinkedIn, please do, because I'm sure there's going to be some great write-ups with the help of GPT or not. No GPT, just purely from the heart, unlike me, where I don't have one. Oh, fantastic. So keep an eye out for that, folks, because I was part of one of the day's talks, and it was just amazing, in-depth discussion about how we move this space forward. Crypto Assembly is on the rest of this week. That's Thursday and Friday. So tomorrow, the days are all a blur for me. So whether or not it's tomorrow, it is. But make sure you check that out. If you are not going already, I'm sure there's going to be a lot more news about that. And then there is a consultation open. So December the 1st, not long to go now, but how we regulate digital assets, digital asset platforms, I should say. So there's about 16 to 20 questions, maybe it's 16. Whether or not you use ChatGPT is up to you, but make sure you read the outputs. We are in the process of collating responses. If people just want to answer a single or a few questions and want to go in on a group response, Blockchain Australia is doing that as well if you prefer to go there or to us, or you can double dip. It just means your message gets double the impact because it's crypto. So make sure you check that one out. And then we're going to go to the interviews now. So first up on stage, the man, the myth, the sock legend, Rob Allen.
Did you say soft legend? Oh, sock. What can I say? This is the thing. You're going to click? Do I have to say click? All right, cool. How long do I have? 15, 20 minutes? 10 minutes? You've eaten half my time. I'll be very quick. My name's Rob Allen. I've been around this space for some time. Been on Blockchain Australia board a couple of times. I came off and came back on again. So I'm doing my time. A repeat offender. As of last week, I rejoined Australian Payments Plus, which I left 2 years ago when it was last called FPOS, and has now been merged into AP Plus with the MPP and BPay. So it's effectively the whole of the payments industry for Australia. My new role is to lead Web3 strategy for Australia. So that's my new gig. But for the last 2 years, I've been working with Hedera, and you would consider me, those of you who know me, Hedera Maxi, unashamed. So click. What I want to do is, hands up for how many of you know much about Hedera, so I don't really kind of overdo it. Okay, about half and half. And how many of you would consider yourself HBARSuite? Okay, I've got enough t-shirts. Come and see me afterwards. All right, click. Click. The clicker's failed already. Don't really need to go into this in this audience, but Hedera was kind of designed to be the next generation of blockchain. It's not a blockchain, it's not a chain of blocks, different data structure, but it serves the similar purpose to solve similar issues that the original blockchain was designed to do, which is disintermediation and providing a trust layer for the internet. So if we go forward, please. Click. Mr. Pavlov. Okay, cool. That's hard to see, but Hedera is an open-sourced layer 1 protocol, which is currently public and permissioned. It's a proof-of-stake network, and its data structure is a directed acyclical graph, a DAG. So it's not a chain of blocks, it's a chain of events within the data structure, which is a DAG. We have no? Back? We have a governing council, which you may have heard of. It's one of the key innovations of Hedera. It's designed to be enterprise grade, and it was determined really early on that in order to get true decentralization, but to maintain enterprise gradeness, we needed a governance model which actually attracted enterprise to it. It's in 2016, 2017. Bitcoin was forking every other day. Ethereum forked a couple of times. It wasn't possible to attract enterprise to put value onto a next generation distributed ledger with all that craziness going on. So the governing council was set up basically on the Visa model. It's a group of Fortune 500 companies that are, or their equivalents across sector, that are decentralized across geography, across time, because they only serve 3-year terms, and across sector and use case. The likes of IBM, the likes of Standard Bank, the likes of DBS, the likes of FPOS here, even Avery Dennison, Google, etc. The list goes on. That's the first stage of a path to decentralization that has been set in motion, where we bootstrap with this initial group of nodes, then we go to community nodes, which is going to be in the order of hundreds, and then ultimately full decentralization. The purpose of that really is to secure the network. Blockchains, we'll use that as a label for all DLT because it's easier. Blockchains that are proof of stake need to actually distribute their tokens and have their tokens at a high enough value quickly enough so that no bad actor notices them and then kind of accumulates enough tokens to compromise the network. In a permissioned state, that is not possible. So we are kind of doing it the slow and steady, 100-year business, 100-year company, 100-year network approach to doing this. The other key innovation that we've got is this API layer. So we do have a smart contract service. It's EVM. It's Hyperledger HBARSuite. You can port your Solidity from any other EVM and run it on Hedera, and it runs about 300 times quicker, I think, 300 transactions a second as opposed to 15. But the cost is super, super low because all of our network fees are charged in HBAR, but pegged to fiat. So token transactions are 0.1% always, and consensus transactions, which is the first service there, are 1/100th of a US cent, always fixed. So even though the HBAR might be volatile in the market, if you buy at spot, you're always going to get a predictable low cost for your use of the network, which is again key for enterprise because as your business grows, you want your operating expenses to be predictable. So what's going on? So I've probably only got 2 minutes left, and I'm going to go way, way over time. This is an online notary. I mean, many blockchains dine out just on this particular use case. You throw data at it, it reaches consensus, you get a proof back. Okay, you get that virtually for free, 1/100th of a US cent to do that. There are lots and lots of transactions like that at the moment on the network. We're doing about 2,500 transactions a second consistently right now. We are doing more transactions, and these are real world transactions for real world use cases I'll talk about later. We've done 29 billion real world transactions since 2019. So we've done more transactions than every other blockchain ever in that period of time. And it's accelerating. We can go to about 10,000 we're going to 10,000 transactions a second throttled, and then when the throttle's released, it's up to 40, 50, 60,000 per shard, and then we'll shard out from them. Smart contract service I've already mentioned. It's an EVM. It runs super fast. Token service is native tokens. So you don't need a smart contract to create tokens on the Hedera network. If you want to access these super cheap interactions and network fees and get native tokens, both fungible and non-fungible, you can use this service for that. But if you want to use a smart contract to orchestrate in a very sophisticated way interactions with the other native services, consensus for notarization and tokens for token stuff, you can do that as well. So, you can create decentralized apps in Solidity that actually interact with consensus service and token service. And as you can see from the top, we're not a one-trick pony. There are a plethora, a vast spectrum of different use cases you can build on these native services. And if I have time, I'll go into them later. Click. Probably touched on most of these, but performance is key. I think it's a differentiator. We don't have to go to a layer 2 in order to scale and therefore compromise on things like security. Security is asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerance, which is the gold standard of decentralized security, and it's got a COQ or COC proof to prove it. I won't read all this stuff out. Stability, we can't fork the network. It cannot be done. You can take the open source and create your own Hedera network. That's perfectly doable. But this network won't fork. And I've told you about price stability. Governance, I've told you about the governing council. I'll come on to that in a minute. Sustainability, this is key. We've got a couple of slides on that, so I might come back to it when I get to it. Click. Won't go into that. It's too much detail. Click. Compliance, because we're enterprise grade, and the layer C boys know this, but because we're enterprise grade, there are things that had to be built in by design, and through process of management of the network that one has to do in order to be able to even get into the room to talk to banks or talk to governments or talk to big corporates. And we've kind of ticked all those boxes as well, because that's the mindset. And when I say we're an ecosystem. We've decentralized into multiple parties across Hedera. But imagine enterprise that doesn't adhere to matters of compliance. It's not going to go very far. So this is kind of been built into most of the what we do. I won't go into any details because it's very dry. Next. Right. I'm big on this subject. This is one of my favorite parts of Hedera. Because the algorithm is super efficient, even though we're proof of stake, we have this very low energy footprint. And I know it's not just about energy and burning, fossil fuels with blockchains anymore, because they're pretty much all bar one proof of stake now. But they're not all the same. And you still have to burn energy. And smart contracts or large networks aren't necessarily as efficient as they should be. Hedera is super efficient. In fact, University College London has now done 2 reports, 2 detailed studies, followed by reports that are in the public domain, of how energy efficient Hedera actually is. The whole of the Hedera network, albeit currently just the governing council nodes, consumes less power than one domestic household. So just imagine that at scale. You're only getting into the size of small towns, not small countries. So this is by design, because we believe in sustainability solutions. And the HBAR Foundation Sustainable Impact Fund, which I helped set up 2 years ago, is a $100 million fund focused only on sustainability projects. And we've built out what we call the Hedera Guardian ecosystem, and I can go into a lot of detail afterwards if you want, for things like solving for broken carbon markets, for biodiversity credits. We're talking to the Queensland government with reef credits. We've got traceability use cases in agricultural supply chain, doing greenhouse gas emissions tracking and tokenizing that, and then accounting it against credits to account for, in a verifiable way, offsets. So all of that becomes possible on a platform where you don't actually have to justify the impact of the platform before you kind of sell the sustainability solution. We actually we more than offset the small amount of energy consumption of the network, so we're actually provably carbon negative. Click. I'll click through these pretty quickly. So this is worth just mentioning. So these are all real world live use cases right now. Avery Dennison is on the governing council. They've got a product called atma.io. They do product provenance and traceability. They are currently doing over 2,000 transactions a second on our network, and that's all greenhouse gas emission tracking, integrity and product provenance, and traceability. And that's only on the first handful of products. They've got billions of SKU items. Avery Dennison, if you don't know, is one of the world's biggest logistics company. You may know them for labels, big American company. They're actually the world's biggest RFID tag manufacturer as well. Next. ServiceNow, if you work in corporates, you probably know ServiceNow. They do kind of business process tooling. ServiceNow has integrated, again, another governing council member, has integrated with the Hedera consensus service. So all those key data points in your business flows that you need integrity for, those data points can be logged into the Hedera consensus service. So imagine a widget in a process flow where you can just drop it into the UI, and it gets you immutable data integrity on a distributed ledger. That's what they do. Amongst other things, they're into sustainability as well. Next one. DLA Piper built a security token platform called Toko, which was one of the first products launched on Hedera, actually. DLA Piper, one of the world's biggest legal firms. Again, another governing council member. Security token platform where they do art, they do real estate, they do all sorts of things, backed up by legal contracts. That's the kind of the link. DLA Piper have legal contracts which are then tokenized and securities created off the back of that. Click. Another sustainability use case. I won't go into details. Click. EDF, big French energy company, governing council member. Next. I love this one because they're not a governing council member, but they're still using Hedera. In America, coupons is, you've probably seen the shows on TV, are massive. Sunday papers clip the coupon out of the newspaper. Massive fraud, huge problem. Perfect use case for tokenizing on a scalable distributed ledger where every coupon is tokenized and individual and traceable. So what they had to do, though, was the first thing they had to do is set up a standard. They created what they call the 8512 standard for coupons, and the Coupon Bureau is the registry and management organization for the standard. And now they're creating all the tooling around that, so coupons can be collected, redeemed, burned, and Walmart are one of their main clients. This is going to be the next big transaction or TPS use case on Hedera. Next. I won't go into too much detail. We're going to have a lot of stables and stablecoin conversation later, so maybe we can come back. But just to say, we've started creating products for Hedera. It's great that we've got these wonderful API-based native services, but sometimes it's actually useful to provide best practice or design patterns or architectural, GitHub repositories where it's easy to download and you're 80% of the way there already. So the Guardian was the first one, a bit different, but if you want to build a carbon marketplace, then fill your boots. Stablecoins are all the rage, as we know, and when I was working with ANZ Bank 2 years ago, when ANZ Bank announced that they'd done a trial on Hedera, they'd taken their Ethereum-based smart contract and ported it onto our EVM, and out of the box they got a 300 times performance increase and 1,000 times cost decrease just by doing that. We thought there was something in that. So Swelds Labs, who are our consensus, our core engineering team, picked up that work that we did with ANZ and have developed the Stablecoin Studio, which is a one-stop shop for issuers of stablecoins to create and issue and manage stablecoins on Hedera. Next slide. We won't go through all of these because there's too many. And stop. Great use cases. I'm a payments guy, by the way. I've been building payment systems for 20 years. Stablecoins are the new payment rails for the future. So as the Web3 payment czar, I've just coined that phrase. You like that? That's good, yeah. I'm the Web3 payment czar for AP+. The stablecoin or similar, and we might be deposit tokens. The UK seems to like those. But there are tokens that are carriers of value on these new decentralized rails. And I really think that these are the use cases that we're going to be looking at for the future. So remittance is actually one that we did recently. You may have seen some news. Shinhan Bank, governing council member in Korea, did a 4-party pilot across 4 different countries, 4 different currencies with Standard Bank in Africa, Siam Bank and Cathay. So Siam is in Thailand and Cathay in Taiwan. And they were doing cross-border remittance with the stablecoin in a matter of seconds. And it was kind of like DeFi liquidity pools and pairs, beautiful and elegant and quick, super quick. Next. Oh, the other one, middle bottom, micropayments. I just want to say, before I get shut up, my origin story for Hedera was looking for a scalable, decentralized network that would support micropayments. My vision of the future is where value flows like any other utility, like water, like electricity, like data. Why not value? But blockchains can't do that, and not without trading off on security or whatever. Hedera can, and that's what attracted me in 2017 to dig a bit deeper when I was at PwC. And I've been digging the rabbit hole ever since. Next. I think that's probably enough. Does anyone want any more, or should we go into the panel? Panel! Good. Any quick questions before we go into that? Thanks, Alex. Joey. Is there what? By design, there should not be centralization risk. So there are different metrics for decentralization, right? And most would say that fully open source, being able to run your own node and validate yourself is truly decentralized and therefore trusted. But how many people can say that they know where the nodes are, that they're not concentrated, that they're not mining pools, etc.? With the governing council, you would probably not expect DLA Piper, EDF, Boeing, Google, Standard Bank, and FPOS to collude against you, the user. Reputationally, it would be too risky. Organizationally, we don't operate like that anyway. And everything's done transparently. So you can go onto the Hedera website and see all of the minutes transparently published of all of the governing council and committee meetings ever. And trust me, having sat on them, whatever's being discussed is published. So I mean, there is risk associated with having a group of enterprise managing the first stage of a 100-year network, with the expectation that the next stage is community nodes and more will be released. However, we started off as a patented, the hash graph was patented. A lot of the early years, we took a lot of FUD about being patented, a corporate shitcoin, which was never the case because the patent only applied at the lowest level, and it's always been open review, not open source, but open review. So it had legal controls, but not, you could still download it and compile it. And then we promised that we would release that patent when the time was right, when there was sufficient adoption, when we got traction enough. And that happened, 2 years ago now, 2 years in February. So at the point where that happened, the engineering team spun out into Swirlds Labs, the business development team spun out into the foundation, the governing council just became the LLC that governs the network. And now we've got the Hashgraph Association in Switzerland, we've got the DLT Science Foundation, which does a lot of analytics and stuff out of UCL. So we're kind of decentralizing by organization as well. And unlike most layer one foundations, we'll just talk about the foundation, there is no control. I mean, I wrote the RFP to provide for a counterparty negotiation in order that the foundation would negotiate its role. So there's no, sort of oversight or control of that organization. So it is truly decentralized. So we do take it seriously. And part of the reason we take it seriously is that it's a Delaware incorporated company, the LLC. Every governing council member owns an equal share, 1/39th share, which is only $100. But trust me, a bank has to go through all the same hoops to actually invest $100 in a Delaware-based company, as it would if it was a $1 million stake. So we've got 4 banks, we've got Google, IBM, all that list that I told you earlier. Every single one of them has gone through significant internal, risk and legal and other assessments prior to getting to the point where they sign that 3-year term. I mean, so all of that effort only for 3 years. They're doing this for a reason. They're doing it because they believe in the future of the internet, not necessarily Hedera. Some of them are just still, toe in the water and fishing. But many of them now actually come with actual use cases. And I spent the last 6 months helping them bring their use cases into kind of a delivery phase. So I've seen a lot of them, and it's quite impressive.
We'll probably get to the panel now, guys, 'cause
Sorry.
we're well over time. So.
Right. You on this? Do we have one more? Is Michael here? What I might do.
Really, really close.
All right. So I had a whole list of questions prepared for this panel, and then Rob just answered all of them in his presentation. So here we go. Just going to freestyle. Okay, so we're going to skip a whole lot of questions that I have shared with you before, and let's dive into more how Hedera works with developers. So let's focus on the developer side, on the builder side, how all of that works. So would love to understand a little bit more how you guys work with developers, how you support your developers, especially we saw some of their names like EDF and Walmart being mentioned. So I'd imagine quite a few maybe Web 2 developers diving into Web3. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Michael?
Yep. Yeah. Well, you hear me okay? Yep. Yeah, I work at Squirrels Labs. I'm one of the developer advocates there, and I guess our job is to kind of educate people who are coming on to learn about Hedera and how to do it. So, as usual, we have lots of modalities for doing that. We work with people like Not Centralized, and we train them on how to. I feel like it's up my nose. We have people like Not Centralized and partners where we train, and then they can come in as consultants to help people. And then we also have the usual discords, and we have a really good documentation and tutorials that people can learn to get up to speed. As a DA, my job is to kind of go into businesses as well and actually find out what people need to learn and do workshops and help where possible. I have an engineering background. I've been a software engineer for 23 years. So I can go in and help teams kind of get upskilled. And that's kind of, what our job is just to basically enable you the best way possible to get building cool stuff.
Awesome. And are there any sort of challenges that the developers face on Hedera that are specific to Hedera ecosystem? Or Hedera
yeah, I mean, as Rob was kind of saying before, the structure of how Hedera operates and then the hash graph, it can be a little bit mentally challenging for people coming from the EVM and learning how to do things in Solidity. There is a bit of a jump. You can do everything that you can do in Solidity, no problem. It's 100% EVM compatible, so your code will work. But certain things are different. So if you want to use the token services and smart contracts, there's some differences because of the way the token service is written. That's getting better. There's more and more things being released recently. And one really cool thing that we've done to kind of help developers that just came out last week was the ability to have your smart contract source code now verified and visible on Hashscan, which is the Hedera Etherscan equivalent. And so now you can see with some certainty what the Solidity contract is that you're operating on, and it's not moving all your coins off to somewhere bad. And so there's more and more tools that they're giving the developers that come from other Web3 platforms that just makes their life a lot easier. So yeah, hopefully that answered that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. And in terms of building on Hedera,
yes.
So Arturo, what are you doing on this panel? Do you want to talk a little bit more about what you have built and what your experience was?
So I try to focus on standards, and the standard in this case is EVM compatibility. So using the EVM kind of enabled features of Hedera, it was basically just copy paste code. Also because I try to use most of the standard functionality within the smart contract kind of ecosystem. For me, that was really, really good because effectively you can just use all of the same tooling that you get from the other parts of the community, like for the Ethereum community and so forth, and you get to apply them in an environment that is Hedera friendly. And I'll be happy to talk more about what Hedera friendly means to me. But being the DeFi association, I think that if there are any spicy questions that you guys may have, considering that we use terms like decentralization in corporate space, just go ahead.
Awesome. Rob, let's come back to you and dive sort of deeper into the Hedera ecosystem. So could you talk a little bit more about HBAR Foundation and how sort of the role that it plays within the ecosystem, how it supports members of the ecosystem, the developers?
Sure. So the foundation was set up, like I said earlier, to do the commercialization or the business development for the network. It does that through giving grants, and it has a number of grant programs. It's divided into a number of funds. So we tend to kind of focus around on-chain finance and real-world assets tokenization. So there's a payments and fintech fund which specializes in that space. You've got customer engagement, which covers rewards and the fun and froth, the NFTs, no offense to the fun and frothers here, but the retail end of the spectrum, metaverse and all that great stuff, and then sustainability and the Sustainable Impact Fund, which I mentioned earlier. In fact, the team are packing right now, I understand, to go to COP28 in Dubai to showcase over 300 projects that have actually started or completed building on Hedera just in the last year since I went to COP27 this time last year. So that's a very, very vibrant part of the ecosystem. I think it's fair to say that we were behind on DeFi, and we were behind on NFTs. So we were playing catch up. As soon as the foundation was launched in September 2021, the first thing to do, well, two things to do. Hedera's never really marketed itself very well, and still doesn't, in my opinion. But it has a kind of enterprise-focused marketing approach. So we leave it to the community largely to, amplify and shill and do all the things that communities love to do. Yeah, and you'll never hear that sort of stuff coming out of our marketing team. So that was one of the things the foundation needed to do to get out of the traps quickly. The second thing was catch up on DeFi, catch up on NFTs and the consumer engagement side, which we'd been falling behind on. And I think they did a pretty good job. I mean, we've got 3 dexes now. Volumes obviously a lot lower than the big ones on other chains, but Hedera Native makes the experience so much better. I mean, I've used Uniswap and I've used our one, SaucerSwap or HeliSwap. We've got Pangolin as well, which is also part of our ecosystem, as well as obviously other ecosystems, and a good Australian company. So the experience on SaucerSwap is amazing. It goes like this. I mean, you kind of want to swap. It's like fractions of a cent, and it's over in an instant. So I think it's very hard to go back to other chains with other dexes that have, once you've kind of had that experience in our DeFi ecosystem. Our NFTs are great, but then NFTs everywhere are fun. But what is key is that we have learned that NFTs aren't just fancy pictures of monkeys and JPEGs. A non-fungible token is actually usable in our supply chain applications, in pretty much every application that has tokens that are not the same. So by definition, non-fungible tokens, but not tokenized JPEGs, just like in a world where everything is going to be tokenized, 80% or more are going to be NFTs of some sort or another. So our carbon credits are actually non-fungible tokens. In fact, all of our real-world asset tokens are kind of like that. So there's a lot going on, and the foundation has been responsible for driving that big surge over the last 2 years. Fortunately, unfortunately, it's been in a bear market, and as we all know, bear markets are to be there to build. And so there's been an awful lot of building going on. And now we're seeing anyone who's plugged in, my HBARSuite friends here, plugged into this every day because they're very noisy in the various forums that we frequent. But there is news every single day. There's another real world project. There's another announcement pretty much every day. And that's all coming under the radar. I think as things get noisier through next year, it'll become very apparent that there's been a lot of building going on, and the foundation has been responsible for a lot of that. We've also got the Swiss Hashgraph Association, which is similar, but has a different approach. It still provides grants, but it also does venture funding for startups and for enterprise. And it has more of a program management approach. So it provides engineers and project managers and other resources, if necessary, to ensure delivery success. Because in a world where 80% or more of startups fail, that's suboptimal if 80% or more of your Web3 startups are failing and you're a grant-giving organization. So the Hashgraph Association seeks to minimize that risk by providing skilled resources as part of the service offering.
So is Hashgraph Association the same thing as Hashgraph Ventures? Is that the same part of the ecosystem?
Okay. So the Hashgraph Association is a group.
Okay.
And the Hashgraph Innovation Program is like the accelerator part of that. And Hashgraph Ventures is a fund. So we're raising a $100 million fund. And they have a ventures studio which supports that fund for the alumni from the innovation program.
And is there a particular focus, I guess, for the venture part of the ecosystem in terms of, are they looking at any specific areas, or is it across the board? Because obviously Hedera has an enterprise focus. You mentioned DeFi. What are they looking at? I guess anyone who's looking to build on Hedera and
we have some very basic metrics set by Hedera and the governing council. It's TPS, it's active accounts, and it's total value locked or total value represented, depending on how you measure it. They're reasonably crude measures, and I like to think of revenue being one of them as well. Sort of driving revenue on the network, because that leads to sustainability of the overall network, and that leads to community nodes, which I mentioned earlier, and then ultimately decentralization. So, but TPS is at the core of that. And that's where they like to focus. So if you're a startup that's come in and you promised, like Coupon Bureau, thousands of transactions a second, you get some attention. If you're coming in at one transaction a second and it's a beautiful use case, but there's only one user of it, you're probably not going to get a big grant.
Awesome. Speaking of, so we've covered a number of different projects, examples that you've given. Any other super cool, innovative dApps that you want to mention? Maybe question to all of the panelists. What is some of the interesting use cases or interesting dApps that you've seen on Hedera? Apart from your own.
Okay, so what I like with Hedera, and more importantly, the reason I think that when people should build on it, as opposed to, when do I get a grant? Because you kind of want to build a sustainable business model. And sustainability comes in and actually getting users on board. And then the question is, well, what problem are you solving for that specific user? I think that the reason when you use Hedera is because you're actually solving more of a fintech type of problem, where the participants in the ecosystem that you're addressing are other corporates, or are people that actually see the value in having a very robust corporate style tech stack, so that it's almost like you go to your customer with AWS, Azure, or Hedera, and that pitch actually resonates with the end user. Furthermore, I think that I'd like to really highlight the importance of pegging to USD. Imagine if you're selling to a big corporate and all of a sudden the solution that you have has a variable cost that not only fluctuates with use, fluctuates with a standard fiat FX, which many corporates are actually not that accustomed to. but they can deal with it. Imagine if you're selling to them with something that is as volatile as a traditional cryptocurrency, right? It just does not fly at all, and gas fees being all over the place. So again, if you're building something that is a fintech type solution, then this is a really, really, really good alternative, I think.
Oh, Michael?
Favorite use case? I think the stablecoin studio is one of our kind of newest things that Swirls Labs developed, and I guess the ability to create tokens and the dApps that kind of wrap around it are, you know, a great use case. But I actually think one of the most interesting, and Rob was talking about like COP28, is the Guardian platform, which is actually solving a real world use case of carbon credit tokenization. But also the upside is that once the markets become big enough, you suddenly have huge financial markets to trade these in, and they're already tokenized. So if you have a DeFi platform and then suddenly you have millions and millions of dollars of carbon credits coming online on that same network, there's a big synergy there. You know, there's something that is going to be a huge thing in the future, and all the building blocks are in place, and it's kind of like who's going to come and build the, you know, the glue that joins all this up. And that, I think, is going to be one of the most exciting things from all the bits that Swirls are kind of creating right now. I think they're the cool things for me.
Awesome. There seems to be quite a big focus on sustainability. Would you guys say that Hedera is a leading blockchain in that space, or are there others that you would consider sort of competing with that?
Yeah, I mean, there are many that claim it. Cello dines out on its sustainability use cases, and I think everyone does it for the right reasons, and their hearts are in the right place, and we're all value aligned. We want a better planet. Like I said earlier, I think if you want to build a sustainability solution and you've got a ton of carbon debt to offset prior to even making any impact, then you've got to consider what platform you're building it on. And if there are options like Hedera, then you should probably go to it. Part of the reason that we built Guardian, so Guardian is a tokenization engine. It takes data, it applies digital signatures using verifiable credentials, so SSI concepts, to create a trust chain. And then it tokenizes that whole trust chain. And because we can do it at scale at super low cost, then you can get a lot of data, which is usually stored in IPFS, into that token. And that makes it, and it's on-chain and verifiable and therefore auditable. We have hundreds of, in the carbon space, we call these methodologies. So a project, let's say a reforestation or afforestation, or a land management or Aboriginal process to savanna burn, any of these projects can attract a global registry to verify that project under a particular methodology. It's a standard approach to getting a carbon credit. And if you can then verify and prove that you've done what you said you're going to do, they'll issue a carbon credit, which has value in markets. The problem is traditionally those markets are opaque. They're subject to gouging. They're fraudulent. You can do double spend. There are middlemen. Well, guess what? Technology we've got that enables you to address all those problems. So blockchains are ideally suited to solving for those problems in broken carbon markets. But not all blockchains are the same. So people's preferred blockchains have been the technology of choice to solve the same problems, and have attracted all sorts of projects around the world to build these solutions. The approach we took was an ecosystem approach. All of these other solutions tend to be point solutions. We need to solve for carbon markets, or for a particular type of project, or for financing of carbon projects. We built the Guardian, open sourced it. We created the world's biggest library of open source methodologies so that they're very easy for projects to onboard. We created an AI-driven automated regression market maker, so a marketplace that sends pricing signals into the ecosystem and matches supply and demand. We worked with the Interwork Alliance to create standards for token taxonomy in order that the attributes on those tokens can be matched via the market maker. And then we've partnered with the likes of Solid World DAO, Flow Carbon, Evercity, who have worked with other chains in terms of financing carbon projects. So this ecosystem play from supply to demand and the financing flywheel is all in place now. And that had to be done first because current carbon markets are full of friction and bottlenecks. If you start, got me on my soapbox now, but if you, we need to have a massive step change in climate finance in order to move the needle to get to zero. And you can't do that in a broken market. You've got to fix the market first or replace it and then pump the funding in. So we believe we've fixed the end-to-end flow so it scales, verification and validation scales, open source libraries, and the automated market maker will all enable that to scale. And then we attract the finance, and the finance is now coming in to grow the project.
Awesome, thank you.
So that's my favorite one too.
I couldn't tell. I'm getting the side eye from Mark, so I think that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for joining us for the panel, and please give them a hand.
Yeah.
All right, it's that favorite topic of yours, everybody. It's tax. Harry Dell, come up on stage and we'll get to the next slides. And you can do the next thing. I'll get better at it. That was really weird. There was like a phantom presser. I don't know if we shared the link with someone wrong or something, but in any case, oh, wait, that's not you. How did it get there? Okay, it's happening again. All right, Harry Dell, come on down.
I'm already here. You'll all be glad to know that I have one slide, so there'll be no clicking dramas. Who's been on the ATO website and read these changes? Yeah, did you see the new web design, like the purple? It sucks. I hate it. So that's actually the worst thing about this update. Before we get into these changes, this is a very high-level summary, and I'll talk about it in a bit more detail shortly. But we have a situation now where ASIC has been regulating a whole bunch of stuff for a long time, and now Treasury's involved, and we're getting discussion papers and we're fixing stuff. Nobody's fixing this stuff. Nobody's supervising these people. They are just writing on this blog what they reckon, and they're affecting the Australian market in this space massively. Almost no one wants to talk about it. It's very strange. But the minute we get past this regulation issue, just in Australia domestically, we're going to run straight into this tax issue, and tax reform takes a long time. Does anyone know when the last major tax reform was? It was the GST over 20 years ago. Government's been too scared to do anything since then. But as you'll see, and as I'm talking about right now, there were 4 new pages put up on the 9th of November. I was involved in the process, in the consultation process. I very awkwardly forced myself in after being rejected once. I pulled some strings because this is a very important issue, and this is all the guidance we're going to get for a very long time. 2 other pages aren't very exciting. One's a little bit exciting, and one of them like really sucks. And this is the DeFi Association. This is the guidance on DeFi. So there was a very oddly specific page about crypto asset transactions with gift cards. So a lot of people thought if you just buy gift cards and live off them, there's no tax. I think that's what the ATO were hearing, and that's obviously not correct. For some reason, that deserves a web page. It wasn't very exciting. If you don't use gift cards, don't even read it. There was another one about gambling, and it wasn't even that exciting either. The actual page about gambling talks about it better than this page does. But there is a misconception with gambling stuff. Say you hold 1 Bitcoin for $100 and it went up to $300 and then you gamble it. The $200 capital gain is not tax-free. That's a realization event. That bit is still taxed. You can pay tax when you gamble with stuff. But if you win, obviously that's not taxed. And if you lose, you don't get a cool, sweet loss to claim. That's the stuff that the ATO, they made it relatively clear in there. But a lot of people, I think, were gambling with lots and lots of Bitcoin, and they weren't really doing much reporting. One a little bit more exciting. Personal use assets. There's been a few private rulings about personal use assets. ATO's been getting a bit grumpy about it. ATO granted a few rulings as well, but they made it pretty clear that if you hold Bitcoin or whatever for quite a long time, it's unlikely to be personal use. And if an asset's personal use, it's tax exempt, as long as you bought it for less than $10,000 and the main use was your personal use or enjoyment. So if you got some Bitcoin and you enjoy it going up in value, that doesn't count, unfortunately. We did do some advice recently for a dude who sold his Bored Ape right at the top. And no, this is why the guidance is very unhelpful. So this is why I'm a bit pissed off about it. But we did some advice. A guy who sold his Bored Ape for about $500,000. And the way he used it, the dominant use was personal, in our opinion. And it doesn't matter how big the gain is. But the ATO kind of says, oh, if it's a big gain, it's not personal use. But that's not actually correct. And this is where we see the first big issue, where they're saying stuff that isn't actually in the law. And that's what I mean when I say this is like, you know, when you go to a recipe and they got this riff at the top and they just keep going about crap, and then you get to the real meat at the bottom. It's like that. All this stuff is just the, when I lived in Rome, here's what I did in my summer days. And then you see the spaghetti bolognese recipe at the bottom with the legislation, although they actually didn't even write it. They should have put that right at the bottom, but they didn't. But the worst, most egregious guidance, it's called DeFi and wrapping crypto. And there's a few kinds of transaction in there, but actually, let's go through them first, and I'll tell you what I think about them all, because you probably expect it's the same feedback for all of them. The first one they talk about is lending and borrowing. So we've got stables, we've got a few other products. This only talks about DeFi lending and borrowing, and I don't really see the difference, but the ATO sees a difference. And they say if an asset leaves your wallet, if a crypto asset leaves your wallet and it goes to another wallet that's got other people's crypto in it, you've triggered CGT. Despite it being a loan arrangement, despite it being however else you might describe it, where you can get that fungible token back, you know, like a MakerDAO arrangement, ATO doesn't care. It's taxable, which kind of doesn't make sense. And it doesn't really address the economic transaction of what's occurred, because if I can put 100 ETH into a contract and get 100 ETH back out, that sounds like a loan to me. A loan is an amount of money that I give someone that I can receive back at a later time. Interest is separate. If you get a new token, it's also not a loan. It's a disposal. So that would be like Lido, like Swell, like a few others. If you give a token and then you get a token back, you've triggered CGT. And the ATO have essentially said that there's no exemption to that rule, which is also wrong, because the tokens aren't the things of value here. And I think a lot of people forget that. Just like HBAR, when you have HBAR, you can transact on the network. That's the value, is the thing you can do with it. If all you can do is redeem it back and get your thing, it's just kind of like a loan. It's like a note. It's not a whole separate thing. But the ATO doesn't like that. They do give a very small exemption if you check the terms and conditions for every single protocol that you interact with. I can tell you that almost nobody's doing it. I've done it on behalf of clients, and we've gone through the process. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's not. But one thing it always is, it's pretty expensive to get a tax lawyer to go through it. First of all, there aren't many around. And second of all, I've got to read white papers and stuff. I don't want to do that. Funnily enough, there is this like one paragraph, and if you read too fast, you'll miss it. And it says that the regular rules and exemptions for securities lending don't apply to crypto, which is rather curious, because that section I've had a bit of strife with in financial services land as well as in crypto land. It actually doesn't specify securities. It basically says if I put some BHP shares in escrow with HSBC and I take out 50% of the equity and then they can, trade it on the markets, what they do with it, then that's not a CGT event. That's not a disposal. But if I do the same thing with MakerDAO, I put the ETH in there, and it's a security arrangement where I get to pull out some equity, it doesn't fall into that provision. And that provision doesn't say anything about securities or shares or anything. It just says assets. So it's quite puzzling why the ATO have, in 2 paragraphs, dismissed that whole thing from even applying, and then given no reasons. That's my favorite bit. No reasons at all. I've had engagements with the ATO on this issue, and they don't like this section very much. They're very passionate about not liking this securities lending stuff. It's just in general, beyond crypto. There was another section which wasn't as exciting about liquidity pools. Liquidity pools are a CGT event when you deposit, and when you withdraw is also a CGT event. And that includes single-sided staking. Single-sided staking kind of takes a few different forms. Sometimes it's just like lock up your tokens and don't sell them and we'll give you some yield. Other times you put tokens or coins in and then the smart contracts do stuff to make an actual LP token. So it doesn't matter really because ATO says they're all CGT events anyway. That one wasn't too surprising. We did expect that for quite a while. Another one we sort of expected is apparently DeFi rewards and interest are taxable. Not so surprising. But a question they didn't answer is, when is it taxable? Is it when I press the button to withdraw from the smart contract? Is it when it hits my wallet? They haven't answered that question. I told them you should probably answer that question, and they didn't answer the question. And this is the last one. This is the one that I found probably the most frustrating, is about wrapping. And the best example of wrapping, which should be tax exempt, is original Ether upgrading it to WETH on the WETH site so you can actually use it. So you have an ERC20 token. And this has upset Anthony quite a bit, I know. It actually basically says on the website, like, even if it's the same blockchain and upgrading to an ERC20 standard, you've triggered CGT. And it doesn't make any sense. We are not realizing the economic value, leaving it as not classic Ether. What do you call it? Original Ether? I think original Ether you'd call it. Vanilla Ether, not chocolate, Neapolitan. Apparently it's a CGT event. We haven't even got to like bridging and other blockchains and all sorts of stuff, but there are clearly CGT events as well if we take this view. And it comes back to, what was the original policy intent of capital gains tax? It was to tax economic gains when they're realized. It wasn't to have weird realizations when they're not appropriate. And you can tell, you can sense, maybe only I can sense, because I used to work at the ATO on these issues as well a while ago now. When you look at the website, it talks about, oh, hey, it's a CGT event A1, which is a disposal event. That's the most common. 95% of events are A1. But then they say, oh, it could be this, or it could be that, or it could be this other one. They don't actually know. And one of those, for instance, is just like something happened and like you should pay some CGT. And it's true. It's called CGT event H2. It's just like, should pay. And they're like, yeah, that one, that one applies. And you can tell they're a bit unsure and they haven't delved into the detail. And it probably didn't help that I hired their only crypto tax specialist. But so sorry about that. Yeah, you can blame me, but I still get to whinge about it at least. But coming all the way back, really, it's every time you interact with a smart contract, token leaves your wallet, unless it's going to a separate address that is held just for you and no one can rug it, which is frankly impossible because if someone has the private keys, they can rug it. Unless you're in those very exact circumstances, any smart contract interaction will be a CGT event, which is super dumb and really sucks. Are you going to kick me off stage, Mark? Please not. No. And I come back to, I'll finish up. Comes back to, we have a regulator that it's unsupervised. And they're throwing their toys around and they're very unhappy about this industry for some particular reason. But there isn't even talk about what we're going to do about it. So there's not even like in all the consultations. Actually, in the first one that I went to, Treasury was there, and I was like, "Oh, gee, Treasury is responsible for the tax portfolio. Let's ask them." Oh, no, we're not doing any tax stuff, not at all. And I've raised this with a whole bunch of industry participants, whether they run conferences or they run banks or they run funds or they run businesses. Is that even if you solve the regulatory dramas in Australia and in most other countries, US, UK is the same. Tax is just there right behind it, and they aren't really talking about it. The country they're talking about it the most is the US, and that's like the one country you don't want tax inspiration from. Like we've got one of the best tax administrations in the world, and it's still like this bad. It's really, really concerning. And this essentially, like all these announced guidance. Well, first of all, it's non-binding, but it's just going to confuse a lot of people, and it's going to make a lot of people non-compliant. So we're going into a world of ATO needs money because government said, go get us some money. And they don't like everybody in this room. So when you get audited, yeah, they're going to be pretty mean about it. And there's very few cases happening right now, but in all of those cases, ATO is very mean. So be very afraid is what you should take away from this. I don't think we have time for questions, but you can find me after. And I'm on TikTok.
Wow. Such positive tones there. Just a reminder, we've got networking after this. As Harry said, any of the speakers on stage here, please do come grab them, but just be careful where you grab them. The next... I don't know why I said that, but anyway, don't get rug pulled by the ATO was a really clear message there. And another clear message was be careful who Harry hires, because that might be the next industry that's going to... No, I'm just joking. But we do need to talk, Harry, about creating some sort of Harry Dell GPT, I think. If there's not enough of you, we need to download your brain somehow. And obviously, revenue share. We'll talk about that. But we've got Stables on, so Liam, come on down. Stables are our sponsor, so you can thank them for the food and pizzas and drinks and all that kind of fun stuff.
Oh, yes, sweet. Yeah, hit next. Sweet. This will be 5 minutes. Appreciate the time, Mark. And this is just a little update from the last month at Stables. So if you don't know who we are, we're a stablecoin wallet. We support 7 EVM chains. You can on-ramp, off-ramp super easily, pay ID, bank account into USDC. We support USDT as well. We just added DAI and PayPal USD in the last couple of weeks. But yeah, Blockies was super exciting. We were pumped. We got the blockchain project of the year and startup of the year. Considering what we've built in the last sort of 10 months or so, super exciting. We partnered with MasterCard in February. So yeah, that was a massive hats off to the whole team that sort of built that there. We had a great event, as Mark mentioned at the start, at Oshi Gallery. That was my first time there, and that is a sick NFT art gallery. So if you hadn't been there, down in Melbourne, we did that event with Kraken Exchange and Algorand. So that was a really cool night. It was like standing room only. We did a great debate. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. And then obviously Oz CryptoCon. So that was a great weekend. We literally had one of the smaller size pods, but we were just nonstop the whole weekend. So I think I'd lost my voice by about 11 a.m. on the Saturday. Karaoke on the Saturday night didn't help on the Sunday, but it was really good fun. It was great having some conversations. We also just heard from people how they're starting to use Stables, which is super exciting. Obviously, on-chain yield now starting to push back into double-digit territory. People are sort of yield. Harry's probably listening to this for the tax we just had then, but people, earning yield on-chain, setting it to their Stables wallets, spending it. We are going to do a lot of stuff come sort of 30 June next year around CSV downloads, etc. But people actually being able to use stablecoins in the real world via their via MasterCard with the Apple Pay or Google Pay, super cool. Next. That's all right. Something that we're super stoked about. So this was our first international market outside of Australia that we've officially launched into. This was at the tail end of last month. So the Philippines, the reason we sort of chose this is, if you look at the sort of stats and data analysis for the last 3-4 years, I think Philippines has been, top 3 for crypto adoption, number 1 for GameFi. And so, yeah, we partnered with a lot of local providers there. So you can actually off-ramp from USDC into Philippine pesos. They all have e-wallets, not really bank accounts. Over 50% of the Philippines is unbanked, but they have sort of the equivalent of a micro bank account. So Gcash, MayaPay, Shopee, Grab. So it's actually been really cool. I've been chatting with a lot of sort of KOLs, influencers, but just people in general that are playing these GameFi games on the blockchains. And so I've just been at the start of the meeting saying, what's your Gcash number? It's like a mobile phone number, like Pay ID. Sort of second nature to us, but for them to sort of go, oh, I'm sending you 2 USDC, and within 3 minutes they get pesos in their account. It's this really transformative, like, oh, that just really works. So their alternative right now is Binance P2P. And I don't know if anyone's ever done a P2P transaction, but it's like, there's not an escrow. I've got to trust you. It's almost like Uber. I look at the rating. Okay, yeah, you've done 3 300 transactions, you're 9.7 stars. I can probably trust you more than the next guy down. But if they're away on holidays or they've got to pick up the kids or they're at work, you might be waiting 6-8 hours to actually get the money through. So yeah, that's been really, really cool and exciting for the response just in the last month that we've had that. Click. Speaking of the Philippines, Erez, our CEO, and Bernie, our Chief Product Officer, are actually in Manila right now. So we're at the YGG event. That's the Yield Guild games, like Axie Infinity. So we're actually next to Coinbase tonight at their VIP happy hour, which is super exciting. So yeah, they've been over there having some really great conversations with local projects over there that are really keen to sort of onboard. As I mentioned, sort of the P2P being the only other option. So if you think Axie Infinity in the last bull run, there were number one adopter internationally was the Philippines playing that game. Essentially in a day, they were making a week or even a month's salary just by playing Axie Infinity. Ultimately, a lot of people got wrecked though, because they were investing in it right at the Pico top. And then the whole way down, they had nowhere to actually cash that out. So it's cool to sort of be able to go, well, actually, if you are playing these games now and you have some USDC, USDT, you can now actually send it to your stables wallet and off-ramp that really quickly, which is a super powerful thing. So yeah, that's exciting. We'll have a lot of sort of partnerships and conversations going into next year from that. Next. We've only got like 2 more slides. Yeah, really exciting. Upside DAO. So we actually have officially partnered with them through 2024. I was at that event Friday of just before CryptoCon, and actually Greg Oakford as well. He won Creative of the Year, so at the Blockies, which was super exciting for him. So a few cool things coming from our end and with Upside through 2024, which we're really excited about. And I think I touched on before, that same week, it was a massive week 2 weeks ago, but we added DAI and PayPal USD support. So it was kind of a cool announcement going with like the OG stablecoin and one of the newer stablecoins. So you can deposit them now onto stables and go from there. Next. Bit of a sneak peek. This is the first time that we're doing like a Black Friday, Cyber Monday thing. So like if you haven't tried out stables at this point, come have a chat to me after. I can send you a couple of bucks USDC, but it's going to be pretty cool. So Friday, we're going to do like a double top ups. There's going to be like 10 people randomly selected that will get double the amount of top up that they do on Friday. And Cyber Monday, we're going to run like a sort of day long campaign where I think 20 or 30 people are going to get 100% cash back on like a coffee, sandwich, whatever they buy. So really cool just to give it a go and try some of this stuff out. Something quick that I'm very excited about, if you've seen my hat, is we have some additional blockchains. So in the same way that we've just added some new stable coins, we do have some new blockchains that will be coming on board. We're actually at the Solana Sydney event on December 6th. So that'll be an exciting night. But yeah, there'll be a few extra blockchains that'll be coming not only in the next week, but the next couple of months too. And I think that's it. So yeah, I appreciate the 5 minutes or whatever it was. But if you have any questions about stables or just want to get set up, come meet me outside after this, and I appreciate it.
Make sure you get that QR code, folks, and definitely speak to Liam. A lot of the time, the stables crew all come down, and they've got really well-designed apps. Even other providers will acknowledge that, like Block Earner that was here before. They well acknowledge that you guys have great design, and it's great. I'm from the Philippines originally. I definitely don't sound like it. Lost my accent at 2 years old. So it was great to see you guys pushing out over there, and it's a really interesting country. You mentioned Gcash and PayMaya. They've got in some ways more advanced digital technology than we have here. Right, that does everything, because you can pay bills with Gcash, you can send crypto to each other, you can trade. So it's like an all-in-one, almost like the stuff that we get out of China, for example. But the Philippines is doing that. But on the other side, there's paper-based systems that are prevalent, because if you're a pensioner, you get 20% off everything: restaurants, movies, groceries, all this kind of stuff. But then every time you tap your card, you still have to fill out paper. Right. So, and then they collate that paper kind of like votes and send it to the government to collate. And some poor sod in the government has to scan all of those and make sure people aren't defrauding the system. Paper. It's crazy. So it's really great to see, this world changing. So well done, Stables. Speaking of, we have the penultimate. I think we're going to skip the video, Chris, just letting you know, since we are behind. So I know, I'm so sorry. He was ready for it and stuff, but we're just going to go ahead. Or maybe it might play. I don't think I can skip past it.
Pleasing everyone.
Oh, okay. It will play. All right.
Thank you all for joining today. The DeFi
That go on.
There. HBARSuite. I've recently come back from the Alts Crypto Convention in Melbourne, so unfortunately I can't make it there this evening. HBARSuite has been able to develop an innovative technology called Smart Nodes, which is a smart contract-less network where developers are able to easily integrate their applications without the use of smart contracts. I'm briefly describe about HBARSuite and what it is, and the advantages of using smart nodes over smart contracts. As the developers are veterans in the field of DLT and the use of smart contracts, they've been able to identify flaws in existing smart contracts. So the team sought to develop a more reliable alternative on top of Hedera. They want to be able to verify each transaction before the approval process. So that's one of the good things about smart nodes is it basically looks into each account before the transaction actually occurs. To be able to verify the transaction can actually happen before it actually occurs and is approved. If they want to have a transparent and accurate transaction history as well, so all validators will need to be open source, which gives you that transparency. Like the main goals that the developers wanted to have is they wanted to reduce the cost for developers. They also wanted to improve the security and have a real decentralized infrastructure to be able to build on top of. Yes, security vulnerabilities is obviously a massive point in which the founders wanted to improve on, and a report conducted by scientists at Thomsen in 2002 estimated that smart contracts related to hacking resulted in an estimated loss of 2.7 billion. See, one of the main things that with smart nodes we aim to prevent and make it more difficult for any hackings to occur. Smart contracts currently rely on a single point of trust. So when you look at the likes of smart contracts, it's normally the key holder, the creator of the smart contract who has that trust. Whereas we want it to be fully decentralized, developers can deploy their appnets into the smart contract, the smart node network, ensuring that their applications are hosted by multiple computers for redundancy. This allows for a more resilient architecture, eliminating the single point of failure. The architecture in itself of smart nodes will help the trust layer for transacting amongst chains. So key benefits along here with comparison chart is obviously the memory limit. We have unlimited because they're spread out amongst the different nodes. The Angular SDKs, which are being created and released in Q2 of 2020, will allow developers to build on top of the infrastructure of the smart nodes and build into the network to gain the most out of it. And when we talk of transactions per second, the scalability, so we've gained full functionality of the hashgraph to be able to utilize the security API, and you've also got the low energy usage, and the scalability, the finality, the speed of transactions, and yeah, smart nodes are built into the hashgraph to gain the native functionality of them. And we've also got the fee structure. We have the free fees in itself. They are going to be lower than smart contracts because the price of smart contracts are actually higher in price. If you're using smart contracts, I'm sure lots of transactions like the likes of banks, for example, creating new contracts every day, every hour, possibly even every minute, and they could actually have a significant benefit for the likes of any of the banks or payment merchants. You've got no charge for Dell transactions, which is a big issue.
We're going to share the video online, folks. So, yeah,
nobody must be paying.
Yeah, I think it's hard to read. So, Chris, we'll skip to the next. You got it? That way.
Find out more, please go to the website or check out the app, where you'll see.
Funny, it's like Google Slides doesn't want to kill the video.
In use.
There we go. Don't get rugged like the ATO, right? That's the message from me. Anthony Sassano, thank you so much for joining us, and you'll lead us into the further networking. So, everybody, if you know the Daily Gwei, you should check that out. It's on every day except for days when he's here. So,
hello, everyone. I haven't got a slides or anything, or really any talk prepared because Mark told me about this meetup yesterday, and I was like, yeah, I'll talk at the end for 10 minutes about something, and I didn't know what that thing was until today, but I do know what it is. And now, shocker, it's going to be about Ethereum. I'm sure you all didn't expect that. But I did want to say first, like, I really enjoyed the variety of talks tonight. It was really great. Besides Harry saying that we're all going to jail for tax fraud, that was a bit of a mood killer, but I guess I'll prepare myself for that in the future. Wrap ETH, and then I get FBI on me. What's the FBI in Australia called again? I don't know. I hope I don't have to meet them. But anyway, what I want to talk about with regards to Ethereum, and it's not just Ethereum, it's just blockchains generally, is that I think what I've always found funny about crypto is that we focus a lot on the tech, especially when you're talking about different blockchains and performance and fees and transactions and all those sorts of things, right? But I don't think enough emphasis is put on the social side of things, the social layer, the people behind this stuff. Because if you look at the long history of crypto now, I mean, it's been quite a while, and you look at the biggest ecosystems by whatever measure you want to use, the ones that are the biggest by a huge margin. So we can obviously take Bitcoin as being the biggest, no matter how you measure it. Market cap is obviously something people point to all the time, and Bitcoin's market cap, is more than the rest of the market combined, right? At least it is right now. And if you look at why that is, it's because it's got a very strong social layer. It's got a very strong following. It's got a very committed community, a lot of people behind it. Yes, it's very limited in what it can do, but that's the whole point, right? That's what people love about it. They love that it's limited in what it can do. It's robust. That they can store their value in it. Those sorts of things, right? I think same is true for Ethereum. It's not as far along in that respect, but Ethereum is also worth, market cap wise, a lot. Ethereum and Bitcoin combined, I think, excluding stablecoins, is like 80% of the entire market. So obviously a huge amount here. But then from there, like looking outside the market, when you have a strong social layer, you attract the good people, right? You attract smart people to your community because they can rely on the fact that this ecosystem won't just disappear in 6 months or won't just disappear in 12 months, especially in crypto where things disappear overnight, right? Something can be really popular and then like a couple months later, no one even talks about it anymore. And it doesn't even take a couple months sometimes. Like I remember like in the bull market, like there was something that was really popular for like a week and then no one talks about it ever again. It's like, okay, like where did that go? And I think that it really is just about the fact that, when you have a strong social layer as a strong foundation, you attract the right people, and those right people build long-term things. And I always use the kind of terminology of missionaries versus mercenaries. Obviously, we're all used to the mercenaries coming in during the bull markets. All they want to do is make money, and that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But they're not going to build anything of lasting value. They're actually, if you really want to think about it, they're actually parasites, right? They actually take value away from the ecosystem because they are just in it for the money. And then we have like the bear market, and then it just becomes a whole mess from there. But the missionaries, on the other hand, are here for the tech, as we say, right? They're here to build things of lasting value, try to help people with these things that we're building, and not just focus on making money at all costs. And I think that missionaries are incredibly scarce, mercenaries are abundant, and that's why you see this kind of dichotomy between like a lot of stuff gets built, but a lot of it gets forgotten because it wasn't built by missionaries. It was built by mercenaries. They built it because they wanted to make money. They didn't build it because they wanted to fulfill a mission, like with something with strong values, or build it to help people. They just wanted to help themselves. The quintessential example of this is FTX and SBF, right? Like he is the number one example of a mercenary. He didn't care about anyone but himself, right? And in the end, obviously, it blew him up. But I think there are other examples of it. I mean, CZ, for example, I'm sure you guys all saw the news today. I think CZ, he's not like SBF, but he cared about Binance and about growing Binance at all costs, and that got him in trouble in the end, right? I wouldn't consider him a mercenary. I wouldn't really consider him a missionary for crypto, but he's a missionary for Binance, right? So there are different kind of forms these things can take, and those are just the two obvious examples. But then you have other people who are the extreme missionary side of things, like Vitalik, for example, in Ethereum, right? Like I don't think you could claim that Vitalik cares about money. I mean, the dude walks around with like a cat backpack on and t-shirt and shorts everywhere he goes. I don't think he's ever owned a car or anything like that. He doesn't use his wealth for those sorts of things. And those kind of, I guess, leaders and those kind of people attract more of the same sorts of people. So that's why I think that if you look at what the most successful things have been in this industry, it is the things that have the strongest social layers. And that's what people miss because they say, okay, this has better technology, this has this can do that, this can do that. It's like, yeah, okay, that's all well and good, and the tech matters. But if the tech is only consistent of people building it that are mercenaries or don't have like long-term values, aren't in it for the tech, don't care about the mission, then either one, it's going to fail because they fail to attract the right people to build with them, or two, they're just going to cut their losses and run, which usually means taking whatever money they can get. And in crypto, that takes the form of a lot of these DAO treasuries that end up forming. What they do is they do a slow rug where essentially they start paying exorbitant salaries to people and say, oh, we're going to pay these people this because they're worth this much, blah, blah, blah. But really all they're doing is slowly draining the treasury for themselves and to benefit themselves. The sad fact is like predominantly all of crypto, not all of crypto, most of crypto it has been traditionally that, but the things that have lasted the longest have been the things with the most kind of like missionaries in them and the most values aligned people. And like, just to shut me up, myself up now, because I know I ramble a lot. That is why I'm in Ethereum. Like, I mean, there's better tech everywhere, better tech, right? In quotes. I mean, there's better tech outside of crypto as well. But I am in Ethereum for that. And that's why I've spent so much time in it. Because I know that Ethereum as an ecosystem aligns with my values. I know that a lot of people in the Ethereum ecosystem want to build long-lasting things. Yes, it's a permissionless platform, so obviously everything gets built on it, right? It doesn't matter what it's like a Ponzi here, whatever. But I think just like the general kind of mission and vibe of the Ethereum kind of protocol itself and ecosystem itself is more towards that, and that's why I've aligned myself with that. That's not to say there's not other ecosystems out there that do that as well. But if we're talking about what has long-lasting value and what can last for decades, hundreds of years, because these systems are being designed, well, not all of them. Some of them are being designed to last as long as humanly possible and potentially beyond humans, right? Maybe when the AI takes over, but that's what I typically look at there. And, I don't expect people to agree with me on that or anything like that. But as I said at the start, there's too much emphasis on the tech side, not enough emphasis on the social side, because none of this tech gets built if the social side is weak, right? It all gets built by humans, at least for now. And, if you've got good humans, if you've got good people building good things and creating long-term lasting value, then that's what you get. And I guess, like, to go back to my earlier example with CZ and SBF, the opposite is Brian Armstrong of Coinbase. He played the long game and he won, right? He had to deal with all the crap over the years of, Coinbase is losing because they're not moving as fast. Well, yeah, because they're playing by the rules, right? They're not being cowboys with customer money. They're not breaking every money laundering rule in the world. They're not doing this and that. And then, but he has crypto values. Like Brian Armstrong got into Bitcoin, I think in 2011 or something like that. And he has held those values the whole time. And now Coinbase is poised to continue to be the largest exchange in the world and now be fully integrated into the TradFi system, which just unlocks the next kind of step for them. And they're not even just doing the centralized exchange. They're also doing like Base, the L2. They're doing their crypto wallet, everything like that. So, he played the long game, and in my mind, he won at this point in time. And that's my kind of like example in that same arena of a missionary versus the mercenaries that we've seen play out. But anyway, I'm going to stop myself there. Thank you for listening to me ramble. I don't know if we want to do questions. I don't know if anyone has.
Yeah, actually, if anyone has any questions, it's a rare occasion that we get Mr. Sassano here. If anyone does it, right here up the front, the coach in the Tracky Dax. One second.
Yeah, I can hear him, but we need the audience to hear.
The people on online.
Oh, online too. Yeah.
What are some of the most exciting new builds you're seeing in the Ethereum ecosystem then? I mean, as an expert on that whole universe.
Yeah. Builds as in like just generally anything being built. Yeah, dApps, infrastructure, whatever it is. Yeah. It's hard to pinpoint if I'm being honest. There's so much going on, and I know that it's become a bit of a meme now with the layer 2s that have been happening now. Like layer 2s, I mean, I think they've gotten a bit overheated. There's too many layer 2s at this point. But I think on the application side of things, this might be boring to people or might not be, maybe because we had a presentation from stables, but real world assets, right? Bringing those sorts of things on chain. I mean, a lot of people don't realize this, but stablecoins is the biggest use case of crypto by far. Stablecoins are real world assets, right? They're pegged to US dollars, which is a real world asset. So continuing in that trend, there are protocols like MakerDAO that have been bringing on things like treasuries and offering yield in crypto. There are other companies doing this. And just creating that bridge between the existing system, which has all of the money and all of the network effect and all of the people using it, and bridging that into crypto, I think is incredibly exciting. Yes, okay, it's not DeFi as we know it, right? It's not going to be decentralized because it can't be, because it's not natively issued on chain. It exists off chain, things like that. But it's all about bringing more people onto these new rails, bringing more of the existing financial system onto these new, better, more efficient rails. So I've been really, really excited about that. And a funny thing is like, when it comes to stablecoins, a lot of it doesn't even happen on Ethereum. most most of the low value stablecoin stuff happens on Tron. Because in South America and I believe in parts of Asia, Tron's very popular because Binance has integration with it. So people use Binance because they can't use Coinbase in a lot of these countries, and then they use that as like an on and off ramp from US dollars. Really, the product that they want is US dollars, right? They don't care what chain they're using. They don't care what if they're using Tether or USDC. They prefer Tether, I think, because USDC is obviously heavily regulated in the US, and Tether's maybe more loose, but so a lot of the low value payments are on Tron, especially because it was cheaper to do it on Tron. I don't think it's as cheap anymore, but it was cheaper to do there. But I think the common theme is that like people are hungry for payments and they're hungry for US dollars. And I find it hilarious that the US is so hostile towards crypto when in my mind, the US has so much power because of the US dollar. Like that's the only reason why they have as much power as they do, because they control they have the reserve currency, they control the world through their money. So wouldn't they be wanting to export more of that to more countries around the world? Wouldn't they want to increase the US dollar network effect? So that's why it's always been funny to me that they were doing that. But regardless of what they think, there are hundreds of billions of dollars of stablecoins live and working, between Tether, USDC, some of these other decentralized ones. And then, as I said, like the rest of the real world assets are also coming on. I think it would be faster if there was clearer regulation, of course, because obviously a regulation focuses a lot on custody, because the main difference between crypto and traditional finance is that the custody and the brokerages are actually separate, whereas in crypto they're not separate. So like Coinbase will do the custody and the trading and everything, but then in the TradFi world it's separated because there's regulations in place to do that. So I think a lot of the bigger TradFi players, they're kind of like scared, so to speak, to come into it because they can't actually comply, and if they try to do anything too out of their box, they might get hit. But then we've seen like BlackRock, right, doing the spot filing for the ETF. I think that like sends a very strong signal that crypto's here to stay, because they didn't just do BTC, they did ETH as well. And then more and more of these players are going to come online. So maybe not the the most exciting thing. Maybe it's not the 10,000 APY that we all want to get from our yield farms, but that is what brings real value to real people, right? And that's steady, sustainable stuff.
Probably got time for one more question. Anyone? Anyway. Oh, here we go. Uh-oh. Be ready. This is Arturo here. Everyone knows, like, be warned, Arturo's on the mic. Anyway.
I really enjoy your comment about the value of community. I fully empathize with that. Now, I wonder how do you see people kind of using the technology that comes out? And I remember a speech that you held with regards to equating Linux, or seeing the similarities between Linux and Ethereum, right? Where I guess that the difference is that Ethereum has a token, it has a way to capture that value, right? Now, I can see many applications where it's only the software that is kind of taken as value, and then you implement all these private chains around. Therefore not perhaps adding value to the token itself. But if you were to explain if there's any value in the private chain kind of evolution on the basis of the technology built from the Ethereum ecosystem.
Yeah, so I think this has been a long debate within crypto for a while now. Early on, I think around the time Ethereum started coming to prominence, and I think Ripple had a big part in this, where a lot of these enterprises and corporates looked at blockchain. They're like, is there something here? And they started talking about making private blockchains and doing this, doing that. And I think none of it really materialized. But I think what's changed maybe over the last couple of years is the advent of just the general kind of term of off-chain computing. So essentially what you would do is you do the computation, the execution, whatever you want off-chain, and then you just post a simple ZK proof on-chain, so like onto Ethereum. And then you have a trustless guarantee that the computation was performed as it was said it was performed. And then you have this proof on Ethereum that lives forever on a decentralized chain that proves that to whichever party wants that. And that alone unlocks a million use cases, like decentralized identity, gaming, being able to have all the assets off chain but still have guarantees on chain. There's just so many different things that fall off of that. But in terms of like people creating their own private chains, I think then it goes back to, are you better off just creating a database, or are you just better off creating like having a data warehouse or a data center that does the computation completely centralized, but then you post that proof on chain, and that's where you get the guarantees from. Because the proof, the magic of ZK, is that like you can know that what was done was true without having to know how it was done. And that I think has been the main unlock over the last couple of years. And that has predominantly been an Ethereum thing. As I said, I think Ethereum, like when I was talking before, I think Ethereum attracts some of the brightest minds to its ecosystem, and it's like the experimentation ground for all of crypto essentially. And it's been obviously applied to scaling with layer 2s like ZK VM, ZK rollups, things like that. But it also extends to privacy too. And I think corporates and enterprises obviously care a lot about privacy, right? They don't want to do anything out in the open. So that's also going to be very appealing to them. But I think probably the team that's most far along in the Ethereum ecosystem is Chainlink, with in terms of talking to these companies and enterprises, getting them to do these sorts of stuff. Because obviously, when you start talking about bringing value on chain to track the value of that, oracles come into it as well. So Chainlink's the obvious stop there. But yeah, it's still early days. I think the infrastructure is there, but it's not mature, sort of thing. And I think that a lot of the obviously bigger companies and stuff, to change their process of doing things takes a while, because you got to go through their whole process to change it. But yeah, that's where I'm seeing the most amount of noise being made in that area.
Okay, fantastic. Anthony Sassano, thank you so much. We're going to get into networking next, but for now, thank Anthony. All right, folks. So just like we saw there, I mean, that were great speeches all around tonight. We saw all the craziness of OpenAI over the weekend. I think one thing that has been proven is that whether it's AI or whether it's crypto, humans are the problem, right? So well done. I think they are going to release Sam altcoin, so have a look out for that. There is still plenty of pizza outside, so you're not going to get rugged from that unless you've got a funny stomach. But if you feel like taking any, take a box outside, and if people ask you outside, tell them that you came from the Oz DeFi event. Now, we've got until around 8:20, and I've got to start getting people moved on, but we will go for drinks further down the road. We're on York Street, just outside here, the entrance. So further down York Street, there's a place called Hotel CBDC. No, not CBDC, sorry. Hotel CBD. It's very close. Hotel CBD. It's within 200 meters, so we'll probably go down there. So feel free to step outside, network with your fellow colleagues, talk to the speakers, don't grab them, and thank you so much for coming.